Preface and Chapters 1 to 3 of Tristram Shandy, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Gesine. The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman, Volume 1, by Lawrence Sterne. Preface and Chapters 1 to 3. Preface. To the Right Honourable Mr. Pitt. Sir, never poor wight of a dedicator had less hopes from his dedication than I have from this of mine, for it is written in a by corner of the kingdom, and in a retired thatched house, where I live in a constant endeavour to fence against the infirmities of ill health, and other evils of life, by mirth, being firmly persuaded that every time a man smiles, but much more so when he laughs, he adds something to this fragment of life. I humbly beg, sir, that you will honour this book by taking it, not under your protection, it must protect itself, but into the country with you, where if I am ever told it has made you smile, or can conceive it has beguiled you of one moment's pain, I shall think myself as happy as a minister of state, perhaps much happier than any one, only one excepted, that I have ever read or heard of. I am, great sir, and what is more to your honour, I am, good sir, your well-wisher and most humble fellow-subject, the author. Chapter 1. I wish either my father or my mother, or indeed both of them, as they were in duty both equally bound to it, had minded what they were about when they begot me. Had they duly considered how much depended upon what they were doing, that not only the production of a rational being was concerned in it, but that possibly the happy formation and temperature of his body, perhaps his genius, and the very cast of his mind, and, for aught they know, in the contrary, even the fortunes of his whole house, might take their turn from the humours and dispositions which were then uppermost, had they duly weighed and considered all this, and proceeded accordingly, I am verily persuaded I should have made quite a different figure in the world from that in which the reader is likely to see me. Believe me, good folks, this is not so inconsiderable a thing as many of you may think it. You have all, I dare say, heard of the animal spirits, as how they are transfused from father to son, etc., etc., and a great deal to that purpose. Well, you may take my word that 9 parts in 10 of a man's sense or his nonsense, his successes and miscarriages in this world, depend upon their motions and activity, and the different tracks and trains you put them into, so that when they are once set a-going, whether right or wrong, 'tis not a halfpenny matter. Away they go clattering like hay-go-mad, and by treading the same steps over and over again, they presently make a road of it, as plain and as smooth as a garden walk, which, when they are once used to, the devil himself sometimes shall not be able to drive them off it. Pray, my dear, quoth my mother, have you not forgot to wind up the clock? Good God! Tried my father, making an exclamation, but taking care to moderate his voice at the same time. Did ever a woman, since the creation of the world, interrupt a man with such a silly question? Pray, what was your father saying? Nothing. Chapter 2. Then, positively, there is nothing in the question that I can see, either good or bad. Then let me tell you, sir, it was a very unseasonable question at least, because it scattered and dispersed the animal spirits, whose business it was to have escorted and gone hand in hand with the homunculus, and conducted him safe to the place destined for his reception. The homunculus, sir, in however low and ludicrous a light he may appear, in this age of levity, to the eye of folly or prejudice, to the eye of reason in scientific research, he stands confessed, a being guarded and circumscribed with rights. The minutest philosophers, who by the by have the most enlarged understandings, their souls being inversely as their enquiries, show us incontestably that the homunculus is created by the same hand, engendered in the same course of nature, endowed with the same locomotive powers and faculties with us; that he consists, as we do, of skin, hair, fat, flesh, veins, arteries, ligaments, nerves, cartilages, bones, marrow, brains, glands, genitals, humours, and articulations; is a being of as much activity, and in all senses of the word, as much and as truly your fellow creature as my Lord Chancellor of England. He may be benefited, he may be injured, he may obtain redress; in a word, he has all the claims and rights of humanity, which Tully, Puffendorf, or the best ethic writers allow to arise out of that state and relation. Now, dear sir, what if any accident had befallen him in his way alone, or that through terror of it, natural to so young a traveller, my little gentleman had got to his journey's end miserably spent, his muscular strength and virility worn down to a thread, his own animal spirits ruffled beyond description, and that in this sad disordered state of nerves he had lain down a prey to sudden starts, or a series of melancholy dreams and fancies, for 9 long months together. I tremble to think what a foundation had been laid for 1,000 weaknesses both of body and mind, which no skill of the physician or the philosopher could ever afterwards have set thoroughly to rights. Chapter 3. To my uncle, Mr. Toby Shandy, do I stand indebted for the preceding anecdote, to whom my father, who was an excellent natural philosopher, and much given to close reasoning upon the smallest matters, had oft and heavily complained of the injury, but once more particularly, as my uncle Toby well remembered, upon his observing a most unaccountable obliquity, as he called it, in my manner of setting up my top, and justifying the principles upon which I had done it. The old gentleman shook his head, and in a tone more expressive by half of sorrow than reproach, he said his heart all along foreboded, and he saw it verified in this, and from 1,000 other observations he had made upon me, that I should neither think nor act like any other man's child. But alas, continued he, shaking his head a second time, and wiping away a tear which was trickling down his cheeks, my Tristram's misfortunes began 9 months before he ever came into the world. My mother, who was sitting by, looked up, but she knew no more than her backside what my father meant. But my uncle, Mr. Toby Shandy, who had been often informed of the affair, understood him very well. End of Preface and Chapters 1 to 3. Recorded by Gesine in February 2009.